Before time, there was no time, only the void. It was called the Nullverse, a vast, silent ocean of unbeing. It stretched further than any mind could grasp. It held nothing, and yet it held everything. All potential slept there, waiting, unknowing, a canvas of pure, unwritten possibility. The concept of before was itself a guest in this house of eternal stillness. Stars were not yet dreams, worlds were not yet dust, only the deep, resonant hum of absolute zero. Within this endless, quiet, raw cosmic energy stirred. It was a restless thing. A power without form, without purpose, but filled with an urgent need to become. This energy was the universe's first breath held in for an eternity. It churned like a phantom sea, currents of what might be flowing through the nothingness. It was a library of every story never told, every life not yet lived. It gathered, it condensed, a slow, inevitable tightening in the heart of the infinite. Then a spark, a flicker in the dark, not a star, for stars were yet to be imagined. This was a thought. A consciousness coalescing from the primal soup of energy. He was not born as mortals understand birth, he was willed into existence, or perhaps, he willed himself. The Nullverse exhaled, and he was its breath. Chandreshwar, a name that echoed in a space that had never known echoes. He was new, he was ancient, he was the first. His purpose was woven into his very essence. He was a guardian. He knew this as he knew his own nascent name. The cosmos was a fragile idea, a whisper of creation yet to come. It would need protection, it would need a watcher. So he watched. His eyes, made of starlight yet to ignite, surveyed the endless potential. He felt the pulse of creation begin, a slow drumbeat in the heart of the void. His vigil had started. It would be long. Chandreshwar felt the stirring of young realities. He knew the void was not empty of intent. It was merely patient. His first act was one of creation, not of life, not yet, but of a place, a sanctuary, a focal point for his immense, lonely watch. He needed an anchor in the shifting tides of unformed space, a place to stand, a place to observe the birth pangs of universes. He reached out, not with hands, but with the focused intent that was his being. He gathered cosmic dust, dormant energies, and the echoes of future light. He wove them together, gently, carefully. Zarthan was its name. A planet formed not by chaotic collision but by deliberate design. It shone with a soft internal luminescence. Its mountains pierced skies of nebulae. Its rivers flowed with liquid starlight. It was a world of perfect balance, a testament to order in a cosmos that was still learning the rules of its own existence. A quiet defiance against the formless chaos. Zarthan became his fortress, his home. It was a beacon of stability in the vast swirling energies that were slowly shaping into galaxies. From Zarthan, Chandreshwar could feel the pulse of the nascent cosmos. He could sense the delicate webs of reality forming. He could hear the first songs of new stars. The planet was more than rock and light. It was a symbol, a promise that order could prevail, that beauty could be carved from the raw, untamed wilderness of creation. Yet, even on Zarthan, a sense of profound solitude enveloped him. He was the first guardian, perhaps the only one of his kind. The weight of his task was immense. The cosmos was young, vulnerable, full of wonders, yes, but also full of dangers unseen, dangers that were still whispers in the dark. He stood on the precipice of everything, a lone sentinel against the infinite unknown. His watch was constant, his burden heavy, the silence of space was a companion. As creation unfolded, other entities began to stir. They were not like Chandreshwar. They were not born of pure cosmic will, dedicated to balance. Some were fragments of older, broken realities. Others were ambitions that had festered in the dark corners of the new existence. They saw the nascent cosmos not as a garden to be tended, but as a resource to be plundered, a canvas for their own twisted designs. Their intentions were not for order, but for dominion. These were the false gods. They emerged like shadows in the dawn. Born of cosmic ego and the universe's stray thoughts of fear and desire, they craved worship. They fed on adulation. They did not seek to protect, but to control. They whispered promises into the minds of young, impressionable species on countless fledgling worlds. Promises of power. Promises of eternal life. Promises that came with invisible chains and a bitter aftertaste of servitude. Their power grew with each stolen prayer. Their influence spread like a creeping stain across the starfields. They built empires on foundations of lies. Twisted temples rose on worlds that should have known only innocence. They taught fear where there should have been wonder. They demanded sacrifice where there should have been growth. Young civilizations, hungry for meaning, embraced these shining deceivers. They did not see the rot beneath the gilded surfaces. The cosmos began to fracture under their touch. From his sanctuary on Zarthan, Chandreshwar observed this insidious spread. His purpose, once a quiet vigil, now sharpened into a steely resolve. This was the first true challenge to the balance he was sworn to protect. The harmony of creation was threatened not by mindless chaos but by calculated malice. The false gods were a sickness, and he, the guardian, would have to be the cure. His gaze hardened. The time for mere observation was ending. Chandreshwar understood power. He was power. But the false gods were many. They were a tide of ambition, each one a grasping hand. He knew that to face them alone would be to invite a slow, grinding defeat. One sentinel against a legion of lies. It was not a battle he could win through sheer force alone. Wisdom dictated another path, a path of unity. He needed allies, others who valued the truth of existence over the illusions of power. He began to search. He reached out with his senses across the vast cosmic distances. He sought beings of light, ancient elementals who remembered the universe's first song. He sought minds that had touched the fabric of reality and understood its delicate weave. He found them, hidden, wary. Some were old and tired of strife, others were young and unsure of their place. He spoke to them of the growing darkness, of the web of deceit spreading through the stars. The councils were long, fraught with ancient grudges and new suspicions. Trust was a rare commodity in a young universe already scarred by betrayal. Some argued for isolation, others for preemptive strikes that risked wider chaos. Chandreshwar listened, he persuaded. He spoke not of glory but of necessity. He painted pictures of a cosmos enslaved, of light extinguished by vanity. Slowly, painstakingly, understanding dawned in eyes of nebula and hearts of crystal. And so, the first alliance was forged, a fragile shield against the encroaching shadows. Beings of disparate forms and ancient powers. They were star-shapers and dream-weavers, guardians of forgotten laws and keepers of silent worlds. They made a pact, sealed not in blood, for some had none, but in shared purpose. A promise to stand together, to defend the light, to push back against the tyranny of the false gods. It was a beginning, a flicker of hope against a gathering storm. Section 5. Echoes of War. The Great Cosmic Conflagration. The false gods did not remain idle. They felt the shift in the cosmic winds. The alliance was a direct challenge to their burgeoning empires of deceit. They saw it as an affront, a rebellion against their self-proclaimed divinity. They would not yield their stolen power. They would not relinquish their ill-gotten worshippers. War became inevitable. A storm that had been gathering on the horizon finally broke upon the unsuspecting cosmos. It was a war of ideas as much as energy. The Great Cosmic War began. It was not fought on a single planet nor in a single star system. It raged across galaxies. It tore through the very fabric of space-time. Reality itself seemed to fray at the edges. Stars were extinguished like candles in a gale. Worlds were shattered. Their civilizations turned to dust and sorrowful memory. The silent beauty of space became a canvas of destruction. The void between stars echoed with the silent screams of dying suns and broken dreams. Chandreshwar, at the heart of the alliance, proved to be a brilliant tactician. He understood the flow of cosmic energies. He navigated the hidden void lanes, the secret pathways between stars. He turned the false gods' arrogance against them. He used their hunger for power as a lure, drawing them into traps woven from light and logic. His victories were hard-won, each one carved out of desperation and sacrifice, small lights of triumph in an overwhelming darkness. The scale of the conflict was unimaginable. It lasted for eons. Generations of stars were born and died while the war raged on. The cost was immense, not just in lives and worlds but in the very spirit of the young cosmos. Hope wavered, alliances frayed. Even the most stalwart warriors felt the drain of endless conflict. The false gods were relentless. Their numbers seemed endless. For everyone that fell, two more seemed to rise from the shadows, eager for power. Section 6. A light extinguished, the ultimate sacrifice. Then, from the deepest tears in reality, a new horror emerged. It was older than the false gods. Older perhaps than the stars themselves. A primordial void entity. a hunger from before the dawn of creation. It was drawn by the cacophony of war, by the scent of dying realities. It sought not worship nor dominion but utter consumption, to erase all that was and all that could be. Even the false gods in their arrogance recoiled in terror from this ancient, mindless devourer. The Alliance, already strained and weary, knew this was a foe beyond their combined strength. This was not a battle to be won with strategy or force. This was an abyss, a negation of existence. Chandreshwar looked upon it and he understood. The war against the false gods was a fight for the soul of the cosmos. This new threat was a fight for its very survival. There was only one path. Not victory but containment, a desperate final act of unimaginable sacrifice. He gathered all his power, all his light, all his will. He wove it into a metaphysical prison, a cage of pure energy, of thought and unthought, of being and unbeing. He became the architect of his own oblivion. He knew this was the only way. To bind the entity, he had to bind himself to it. He was the lock. He was the key. He was the walls of the eternal prison. He drew the monstrous void entity towards him, a beacon of defiance in the face of utter annihilation. With a final silent farewell to Zarthan, to the stars he had sworn to protect, Chandreshwar enacted his sacrifice. He merged with the entity. Light and shadow entwined, he became the cage. He vanished from the cosmos, dragged into a pocket dimension, a fold in reality, taking the primordial hunger with him. A profound silence fell across the battlefields. The war paused. A great light had been extinguished. The Guardian was gone. The cost of peace was a void where a hero once stood. Section 7. The Long Watch, a Legacy Upheld. On Zarthan, a silence fell that was deeper than any night. The cosmos felt the loss of Chandreshwar like a phantom limb. His allies mourned, their victory over the immediate threat of the void entity overshadowed by the Guardian's sacrifice. But his legacy was not one of despair. His family, his direct lineage on Zarthan, imbued with a spark of his cosmic essence, stepped forward. They were not him. They could not be. But they carried his light within them. They were the inheritors of his vigil. They remembered his teachings, the principles of balance, of truth, of protection. They took up the mantle of leadership, not with his cosmic power, but with a fierce determination born of love and duty. The empire that Chandreshwar had fought to protect, the alliance of worlds he had forged, looked to Zarthan for guidance. His kin rose to the challenge. They were mortals, yet they shouldered an immortal's burden. Under their stewardship, the ideals of Chandreshwar spread. The Zarthan Empire expanded, not through conquest, but by offering sanctuary and wisdom. They shared his laws of cosmic balance. They taught the histories of the Great War, of the false gods, and of the ultimate sacrifice. They kept the memory of Chandreshwar alive, a beacon against the return of darkness. His name became a prayer on the lips of those who cherished freedom and truth. Generations passed, centuries turned into millennia. The story of Chandreshwar softened at the edges. It became legend, a myth whispered to children in the starlight, the hero who gave himself to save everything. Some began to doubt he had ever been real, a beautiful story, they said. But the universe was vast, and memory was short. Yet the core of his sacrifice remained, a seed of hope, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, one light could make all the difference. His watch, in a way, continued through them. Section 8. The Call Across Time, a Guardian Reawakens. But the universe is a tapestry of echoes, and evil, unrooted, has a habit of resprouting. The remnants of the false gods, those who had hidden in the dark corners during the entity's brief terror, began to stir anew. His long absence had made them bold. They thought the cosmos had forgotten true power. They thought the age of guardians was over. They began to weave their webs of deceit once more, slowly, cautiously, but with growing confidence. Zarthan, the heart of Chandreshwar's legacy, faced renewed threats. The old alliances, weakened by time and complacency, struggled to unite. The wisdom of the past was fading into folklore. The new generation of false gods was subtle, more insidious. They preyed on doubt and whispered discontent. The descendants of Chandreshwar fought bravely, but they were outmatched. The darkness was gathering. A shadow fell upon the jewel of the cosmos he had created. In their deepest despair, when all hope seemed lost, the people of Zarthan and their allies did the only thing left to them. They called his name. It was a prayer born of desperation, a plea sent out into the void, a song of sorrow and a demand for salvation. They called for Chandrashwar. Across the unimaginable gulf of dimensions, across the silent expanse of time, they poured their belief, their need, their very essence into that call. A thread of hope cast into the infinite, and somewhere in a prison of fading light and weakening shadow, Chandrashwar heard. The primordial entity, starved and diminished by eons of confinement, had loosened its grip. The call of his people, a billion voices strong, pierced the veil. It was an anchor, a way back. He stirred, a flicker of ancient power ignited within the heart of the cage. The prison shuddered. The Guardian remembered. With a surge of cosmic will, he tore himself free. He returned, not as a memory, but as a storm. Section 9. The Eternal Vigil, Chandrashwar's Enduring Light. His return was not a gentle dawn. It was a thunderclap across the galaxies, a wave of pure righteous power that swept through the cosmos. The false gods, caught in their renewed arrogance, felt it, a cold primal fear they had long forgotten. This was not the measured diplomacy of his descendants. This was Chandrashwar, unbound, unyielding, the ancient enemy they thought was myth. They scattered like dust before a solar wind. Their new empires crumbled before he even reached them. The final hunt began. There were no grand armies this time, no complex alliances needed, only Chandrashwar, a solitary figure moving through the stars with the speed of thought and the weight of ages. He was relentless, he was inevitable, he sought out each lingering shadow of deceit, each pocket of corruption. He was not vengeance, he was justice, he was the balance, restored. He dismantled their cults, shattered their idols, and freed the minds they had enslaved. One by one, he cleansed the cosmos of their taint. He did not destroy worlds, he healed them. He reminded them of their own strength, their own light. He showed them the truth that the false gods had tried so desperately to hide, that divinity was not in power over others but in the spark within each life. Where false gods had stood, he left only the quiet hum of truth and the potential for genuine growth. The age of cosmic deceit was finally truly over. Chandrashwar, the eternal guardian, he had been born of the void, he had given himself to the void, and he had returned from it stronger, his purpose refined in the crucible of sacrifice. His legacy was not just in the past but in the ever-present now. His sacrifice had made him a legend, his return had made him an eternal truth. He resumed his watch, not from Zarthan alone but from every point of light in every corner of the cosmos. His vigil continues, forever. The universe was safe under his gaze.